12:31 guys, let's get started. So good afternoon everyone. Thanks for joining Elite CISO's first technical session. So last week we had a session that was on personal finance. So let's not call it a technical one. This one is the very first session of 2023. So happy new year everyone. Thanks for taking out time and joining this session. What you see on the screen is a very relevant topic for current times. What it says is cyber threat landscape and approach to deal with the modern day attacks. So what Vishal is going to talk about is what the current cyber threat landscape looks like and how do we deal with the recent and the modern attacks which are coming in. So Vishal is a Unit 42 consulting lead for Asia Pacific and Japan, and he is joining us from Singapore. Right, Vishal?
That is correct.
Awesome, awesome. Great. So from the agenda perspective, what you see is it is not 11 o'clock this time because Vishal was kind of occupied in other meeting. So we had to move it from 11 o'clock to 12:30. Appreciate you guys shifting your schedule and joining this session. Last I saw, there were about 120 people already in this session. So really appreciate that. From an agenda perspective, very quick initial introduction. And then we will have about 40-45 minutes with Vishal talking about cyber threat landscape. And at the end, we will save about 10 minutes for Q&A. There is no other panelist right now who can answer your questions while the session is going on. So what I would recommend is you hold your question till the end, and then you can raise your hand. We will unmute you, and then you can ask your question. And apart from Q&A, we will have a certificate. I'll share the password to download your participation certificate. We will have Wheel of Fortune, and for Wheel of Fortune, we are giving away 3 UPS for your Wi-Fi router, right? So if you're working from home, power goes off, your Wi-Fi goes down, and then you cannot connect to the Elite Knowledge session. Just to take care of that, we are giving away these UPS systems. Last but not the least, we are still going to do stand and attend like we did for the entire 2022, right? So in the previous session, the finance session that we had on 5th of January, we sent this poll asking that do you want to continue with stand and attend or not. So about 92% people said yes, they want to continue for stand and attend. And why? Because the reason is very simple. If you are going to sit, then your brain will be foggy. You will not be able to understand what Vishal is going to talk about. Though Vishal is sitting, he knows what he's going to talk about, right? But this challenge is not for him. This challenge is for all of us who are spending a lot of time sitting in office or, while working from home. So I do not want to be another reason to bring Elite CISO webinar to you guys. And then you are sitting again for another 1 hour. So accept this challenge, stand and attend this phenomenal session that Vishal is going to deliver. And if you stand, you will have better posture, blood will circulate better in your body, and then you will have active brain and you can understand what Vishal is going to talk about. So with this, over to you, Vishal. I am going to stop sharing my screen. And if you accept this challenge, go to the chat and say, yes, you're accepting it. With this, over to you, Vishal.
Okay, just give me a second. I'm just sharing my slide. Can you see my screen?
Yep, it's there.
The full screen?
Yeah, full screen.
Okay, because I have multiple monitors. So
yeah, this is good.
Okay, great. And you can hear me, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining the session, and thank you very much for adjusting the time, Vikas, and all the participants here. Really thankful to you. Let me give a little bit of my introduction first before we get into the session. My name is Vishal Lanjekar, and again, I lead the Unit 42 consulting services practice for the Asia Pacific and Japan region. The first question would be, what is Unit 42? So again, Unit 42 is a division within Palo Alto Networks, and what we do is it's an intelligence and consulting services division within Palo Alto Networks. So I lead the consulting services practice for the region. A little bit of my background: I have been with Palo Alto Networks for 4 years now. Prior to Palo Alto Networks, I have been working with multiple, some of the top incident response and security operations and intelligence companies for a very long time. Started my career around 97, so it's been almost 25 plus years now. And largely my experience has been with starting with IT security way back in 99 2000 up till years, so more than 20 years in IT information and cybersecurity as such. My specialization is into security operations, cyber threat intelligence, and incident response. So that's what I do. I work with multiple private sector organizations, banking and finance, for example, retail, healthcare. At the same time, I work with certain governments and also in certain places with defense customers on working at a national security level. So that's something which is I do. Okay, so we're going to talk about the cyber threat landscape. The way I would like to let's say split the session is, first we're going to talk about a little bit about history. Let's say history. Let's rewind something in 2022. But at the end of the day, we all know we learn from what has gone past by us, right? So let's see what has happened so far, how things change in 2022, and then what is that we are seeing now, and what can we anticipate in the future. At the same time, what is it we can do? I don't think we have to do some rocket science out there. I think if you see some of the slides which are present, it's pretty much logic, I would say, and then that is something which we need to bring into our day-to-day, operations, probably when defining our cybersecurity strategy as such. So with that, let's start with a little bit about Unit 42 before I actually get again. I mentioned that it's an intelligence unit, but what do we do on a day-to-day basis, right? So we have, like say, as I mentioned, we are an intelligence company, an intelligence unit within Palo Alto Networks. If you look at today's attacks, the way attacks are happening, you need expertise, experience, at the same time threat intelligence to deal with these sort of attacks as such. This is an average figure. We investigate more than 1,000 breaches every year. This is an average figure for over the last couple of years. So we see the bad guys, we see the threat actors, we see cyber criminals, we see nation state hackers, and we know what exactly to do, their modus operandi, and this is something, this is intelligence that we use to, when we conduct incident response engagements, when we conduct, other proactive engagements with customers. It's not only about our intelligence. We also work with, we have a very strong relationship with over 200 plus intelligence agencies, you can say, or government agencies. So we're talking about the Interpol, Europol, NATO. Even in India, we work with a couple of government agencies to share intelligence with each other bidirectionally. So that is something that we do. And then finally, we have, again, the core team. All our services, all the approach that we have is totally threat informed and intelligence led. So we have more than 250 plus threat researchers. When I say threat researcher, we're purely intelligence people whose day in day out job is to research threats, research new threat actors, their TTPs, have more context to it and at the strategic level, and then use that intelligence to deliver our services. At the same time, embed that into the products of Palo Alto Networks. So that is something that we do on a day-to-day basis. Now, when we talk about this, as I mentioned, I'm going to just go back a little bit into 2022 and what exactly happened. And so I think we all everything, like we had pretty much difficult the past 3 years since the COVID came in, where we all went through that, right? But again, if you see the cyber threat landscape, it's actually the way the attacks, they actually increased rather than going down as such. So let's look at some of the major attacks that happened in India. And when we see this, okay, this is all public information, right? So this is not something which I'm sharing on my own, but this is all open source intelligence or information. So we talk about hospital attacks, we talk about attacks on the power grid, we talk about attacks on, let's say, oil companies, or even, let's say, attacks that could actually cost, probably, maybe, it didn't go to that extent, but probably may cost human lives. We're talking about a critical infrastructure has been attacked by attackers as such. We saw financial organizations been attacked. So if you look at it, if you compare this to, let's say, 2021 or even before that, you see this rise in the number of incidents that have happened in the past year as such. And when I say incidents, I'm saying specifically incidents that really impacted the assets or the organization as well as the nation to an extent as such, right? So this is something which I think is the first thing that we need to know, is that things are changing rapidly, right? The way attackers are, getting into networks, the way things are going across is pretty much different than what it used to be before, as such. There are some few staggering statistics, I would say, like in 2022, right? And this is again, if you look at it, in 2022, there were 1.9 million cyber attacks against Indian healthcare industry or organizations, right? So we're talking about 19 lakhs, if I'm not mistaken, right? So 19 lakh attacks against healthcare institutions as such, and this figure is the highest in the world, right? So we are talking about cyber attacks on India healthcare to be the highest in the world today. So if you can see, this is happening exactly when the COVID wave is happening, when people are trying to like recover, and all those things are going on. So this is something which is again, it's going to a next level when you're talking about purely just one sector, healthcare. We look at BFSI, right? If you see BFSI, it was the top target for cyber attacks in the entire Asia Pacific, I would say, right? So this is something, again, it's all intelligence and information. This is open source. So these are the figures that really shock our mind, that okay, this is what happened, because many a times we are so crumbled into what we are doing on a day-to-day basis, and we tend to, let's say, won't really focus on the larger aspect of how things are going across the industry or across the nation. But when we look at these figures are really, really, very, very staggering and surprising. So that is something which is again one thing that we need to know. If you look at the government bodies, like say the government organizations being attacked, it topped it's the world's top victims for cyber attacks in 2022 Indian government organizations, I would say. So if you look at just a figure of November, I'm just saying November, there are 12.67 lakh incidents reported in just November 2022. So this is something which, if you go back a couple of years, we didn't expect to see that. Now, again, why this could be happening, we know, because it's we are moving toward digitization. Most of things are getting digitized. There is a heavy focus on digitizing thing, and then we all today, most of us, work from a mobile, whatever we order food, we do whatever, right? Everything is digital as such. So as we go digital, definitely, these attacks are going to rise, and we see this when we see these figures. These are really, really, scary figures, I would say, and this is where we need to have a strategy to look at these sort of how do we counter these sort of attacks as such. When we talk about these attacks, there's one more aspect to it, right? So if you look at these attacks are more targeted than ever, right? Now, again, so if you look at it, if you go a couple of years back, okay, there were some incidents which were attributed to a nation state. There were some incidents which were attributed to a specific group as such, but now it's becoming more and more common. If you see whatever the attacks I spoke about, right, there are a lot of these attacks which are actually attributed to a nation state. And so, for example, we're talking about $529 million stolen from Indian citizens. It's a matter of cyber crime. We are talking about 1.9 million attacks, again, attributed to a nation state. So this is where where things are getting worse. And why, why should we be worried? At the end of the day, our organizations, right, when we are working in India, in the country, at the end of the day, all our assets still are assets of the nation at this end of the day, right? So the thing is that if a specific, let's say, an organization goes down, it has some or the other impact on the nation, and this is what typically a nation state would probably want. Now, it could be disruptive. So, for example, let's say the power grid sort of a thing, or it could be purely financially motivated as such. Again, we see a lot of things happening. I mean, most of the figures today are related to cybercrime, followed by espionage, followed by hacktivism, followed by, let's say, cyber warfare as such. But at the end of the day, what we see is the attackers are going where there is money, where they can make money, either it's direct money or make money out of whatever sort of activity they would do as such. So when I mentioned that we basically investigate over 1,000 incidents of breaches every year, some figures, right? So if you look at I just really split it into, and say, industries, like say what are the different industries that we have seen. So definitely finance, healthcare, professional legal studies, manufacturing are one of the top industries that are targeted by attackers. So 60% of our cases, we would see that these are the industries that have been targeted by attackers as such. Many a times the attackers might also, target, let's say, small-time organizations. So basically, many a times we feel, okay, oh, we are, let's say, probably into, let's say, sort of a, let's say a retail industry, or let's say a big one, but let's say we have a very small niche sort of industry. But at the end of the day, if the attackers believes that, okay, he can get money out of you either by stealing your data or any other means, he's gonna basically come after you. So this is something which we need to know. At the end of the day, maximum cases are where the money is there, they're going to go and target it. And again, when I talk about this, there are cyber criminals who do it, but there are also nation states. So for example, one of the nation states is again where their military budget, a certain percentage of their military budget comes from cyber related activities as such. So you see, there are a lot of things that are happening across the globe, and then and this is where the industry is moving as such. When we talk about the different attack vectors, so for example, if you look at the top three, like, and I think all of you, or say most of you, would agree that the phishing, again, is one of the top attack vectors that attackers would use against organizations to achieve their goal or to penetrate into their network. And 37% of our investigations, what we have seen, contributes to phishing as one of the vectors used by attackers, followed by software vulnerabilities. Software vulnerabilities, again, but it's a cloud era. Everything is going on cloud. And then as new applications are coming up, as new systems are coming up, so are the vulnerabilities going high. And this is where you see the next vector is software vulnerabilities, which have been targeted by attackers. And next, what we see is brute force. Now, a substantial percentage of our investigation is where we see RDP being targeted by attackers through a brute force sort of a technique to get in the network. And RDP was a protocol which became pretty much dominant during the last 3 years when people are working from home, because everything, or even the IT administrators, were really working from home, and RDP was something which was massively used. And this is where, if you look at brute force, okay, we feel like it's an old technique, but yeah, the way the things are moving, like we got to use it, using working the way in a different way, like say in a remote sort of environment. This technique has become even more prominent, where attackers are actually exploiting RDP to brute force into environments and get access to the environment as such. If I look at the incident types, let's say, for example, when I talk about incident types, 70% of our cases were either ransomware, or they relate to ransomware and business email compromise as such. And this is again a big thing, because in spite of whatever we are doing, in spite of, let's say, we are, like say, when I say we as an industry, We are putting all the efforts to create, user awareness programs, or run those programs. Don't click on phishing links. Don't do this. You see, things are still being executed, but at in a much larger scale, I would say. So phishing is still one of the top techniques, and the attackers are getting more and more sophisticated the way they send emails. For example, if you look at phishing, one is the external phishing, but there is something called as internal phishing, and I think it's one of the MITRE techniques, right? Internal phishing. So probably you receive an email from one of your coworkers, right? And it's a legitimate email, but it's been sent by an attacker. So phishing is something which is is something which is really taken up by attackers last year. And so as ransomware, we saw a substantial rise in ransomware, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. So when we talk about business email compromise, so if you look at some of the figures, so last year there were more than, I would say, close to 20,000 attacks. The global losses that resulted from business email compromise was around $2.4 billion. Okay, and the average loss was around 120K USD. Now, if you look at on the right hand side, there's a picture. Okay, so this is something is again, as I mentioned, we work with different intelligence agencies. So this is an operation that we conducted jointly with Interpol. And if you look at the pictures out there, so the picture at the top, this particular threat actor, we got him arrested in 2018. Somehow he didn't have that sentence that much. He didn't serve too long sentence. He came back and he started the same thing he was doing again. And we worked with Interpol again, and he got rearrested again last year. Similarly, other guys, the guy with the let's say the one with the airplane in the back. If you look at the guy down flashing up a gold-plated car, these are some of the attackers who were like really siphoning out or making millions of dollars just from business email compromise. So when we confiscated a lot of things, we found a lot of things which was really very shocking, and this is where this has become a very lucrative business for these criminals to use say one of this technique to siphon off money from organizations as such. So and again, at the moment, all these have been arrested with our intelligence that we provided to Interpol and a joint operations with Interpol. So, but this is where you see a lot of things going across in the industry as such. When you talk about ransomware, right? If you look at ransomware figures too, last year there were more than 3,700 plus attacks, which was again up from the previous year. And the global losses resulted to around 49 million. So if you see ransomware, it's still not because the BEC global losses were around 2.4 billion, but in the ransomware losses with around 49 million USD. But again, there is a shift that we are seeing, and this is something which I'll discuss in a couple of minutes. But again, it's still staggering because the average ransom that was paid was around 541,000 US dollars by organizations. So again, a big figure. So people are falling to ransomware. Attackers somehow the other way make into the to the environment, and they start encrypting systems and then demand ransom against the data that they have stolen as such. So again, ransomware was also, as I mentioned, one of the prominent threats, or rather is also today, but that we are seeing in the industry as such. We also saw a lot of increase in the ransomware as a service model, right? I think every one of us knows how this model works as such, but again, it's a very easy way for say attackers who do not want to invest in, let's say, an infrastructure to target the organizations. Rather, let's say, get a ransomware service infrastructure and then use that infrastructure from the developer along with the ransomware code and just target the victim. So these guys who do it are the affiliates. Now it was a like a business model, right? It is a business model, right? For example, whenever they buy the or they borrow the the ransomware from the developers, and then they use that to target the victim with the help of course, the initial access broker. Uh, Many a times, so when they steal the information and when they get the ransom, they give a cut to the developer. So on an average, they used to give like 20 to 30% of cut to the developer. In certain cases, let's say I believe it was Black Cat, where the Black Cat ransomware actor just to 10% of the cut, and then 90% was earned by the affiliate. So again, there was a rise in ransomware at the service model, and still we see a lot of things, let's say in the forums, underground forums, and dark web forums, that these things have been advertised and then probably being used by attackers to target victims as such. This is something that we did. We also found a couple of things. For example, leak sites, right? So leak sites are typically they're hosted on dark web, where these ransomware groups will like publicly, as I said, within that particular forum, right? Post victim information or some data samples, to show, to basically name and shame the victims as such. And then this is where we see that there were like last year there were like 2,566 over 2,500 victims were publicly posted on leak sites. So it was an 85% increase from the previous year. At the same time, we observed there were 35 new group leak sites, and then that list is still growing. Okay, and this is something which was again a staggering figure, where how these attackers are actually making up, all these things, and then probably earning out of this data that they steal from organizations as such. We also saw a rise in multi-extortion, right? If you recollect when talking about multi-extortion, again, it was not just about, okay, I steal the data and you give me the money, I'll give you the data back or the decryption key, and you can decrypt the data. End of the day, what we saw was that there was a multi-extortion that the attackers actually followed. So first, okay, yeah, they steal the data, okay, they encrypt the system, and then say, okay, we have stolen the data, okay, give me money, or I will, let's say, expose the data or sell underground or whatever, right? So that was data theft. If the victim, let's say, said no, we're not gonna pay for it, they would pressurize the victim by launching a denial of service attack on their public-facing websites, and to put a pressure, okay, for them to pay the ransom. Even if there are many organizations who had a policy and saying, okay, we are not going with any sort of ransom payment, right? They would further go and harass the victims' customers, their business partners, the employees, and also report to the media about this particular organization being hacked, and then we have the data and those kind of things, to do a naming and shaming sort of a thing in the industry for that particular victim. And they also went to an extent of of targeting significant time-sensitive financial events as such. So there was a rise. And there is, I mean, in certain cases, there's probably a rise in multi-extortion technique, but we saw this a lot, last year as such, where things were going this way. And again, there are still things happening. And again, I would say that all of these things happen in every incident, no, but then there are incidents where you see most of these things happening as such, in a ransomware sort of an incident as such. But what we are seeing now is, this is something that we are talking about last year, but this is what we are seeing now. There is a shift, okay? And the shift is the attackers are now moving back from multi-extortion to a single extortion, I would say. So basically, in spite what these guys are doing is they are not really targeting. I mean, in spite they are like using the let's say the ransom note. They're basically putting a ransom note to saying, okay, we need so and so money in exchange of your data, but they're not really going and encrypting things. This is because, again, it's also a lot of work for them. So create that algorithm, do those, ensure that thing is working. It should be error prone and those kind of things, because many times they have themselves a victim because of a wrong code that they developed. So what we are seeing now is, again, there's a shift where the attackers are going back to a single data theft sort of extortion, and not really with that multiple or this quadruple sort of technique that they used to do before. Again, I'm not saying it's completely shifted already, but you're seeing a lot of incidents where they are not really doing those ransomware anymore. They are just moving ahead with saying, okay, at the end of the day, we need data, right? That's what they say. Now, one of the case which I can say is, okay, so is where a data from a particular organization was stolen. When I say data, it was stolen from one of the top executives, and it was a personal data, which was very sensitive, right? Now, because it was a personal data and an executive data, it could have impacted the company if that data was leaked outside. And this is what, and they left a note without even encrypting the systems. They left a note saying, okay, we need so and so, others, we're going to release this particular data, and the company paid the ransom as such. So this is where we see there's a shift that is happening, where people are these attackers are now moving to single data theft extortion sort of model rather than the encryption and the multiple and quadruple sort of extortion techniques that it used to do before. We also see a lot of proliferation, increase in the rise in non-state actors, right? Now, I'll just give you a context. This is again with context to Russia, Ukraine. But again, if you look at the geopolitical environment, if you look at how things are moving across the globe, right? This pattern could be taken up by the local cyber threat actors as such. So, for example, even let's say in the Russia-Ukraine sort of thing, we see over 40 groups that declared sides on like either side. Say, like some went with Ukraine, some supported Russia. One of the top groups which got separated, which broke up, again they went and sided with Russia. So those kind of things are something that we are seeing. And then all, like say for example, hacktivists, cyber criminal, ransomware groups as such, these are getting motivated. Now, how they're getting motivated, that's something, it's a separate topic of discussion, whether nation states are using them or basically they're going to support a specific cause. That's a different story altogether. But this is something that we are seeing that is happening, where these groups are getting more and more aligned with the geopolitical aspects that are happening across the globe. And then again, we all know we live in an environment which is very dynamic. Things could change overnight, and this is something we need to understand how things probably are going across. Again, in certain cases in the Russia-Ukraine sort of a thing, there are some civilians that are recruited for such purposes, and then that's how things are moving over there. Some of the things that we also noticed that, for example, in that particular war that is happening, there are some other nation states which are pretty silent, but and people have questioned why are they silent, but the reason is they're not silent. Basically, they're just going and collecting intelligence from both these states that are where the conflict is taking place, and this is something even that probably could be applicable to our in a geography where somebody's, if the nation is silent, doesn't mean they're silent. They're basically collecting information. They're collecting intelligence from your organization, and this is where we see also a rise that probably, and we basically recommend our recommend organizations to have to reevaluate their incident threat programs too, because this is something which again a matter of, it's a topic of a discussion where how do we monitor insider threats? We know about sleeper cells and those kind of things. So that is something which we see is probably gonna rise as we move ahead in this particular year as such. Yeah. So again, there's an increase in the non-state actors and their activities as such, as as we speak for this year. We also see the attack groups are using each other's tools and techniques. So now this is again a big concern, because many a times we, well, when we talk about a specific APT group, we say, okay, this is APT X, this is so and so group as such, and these are the TTPs, this is the tools that they use. But what we are seeing now is that these attack groups somewhere use each other's tools, because at the end of the day, what works is good. Why do you want to do something new? So the attribution part is becoming more and more difficult nowadays. So this is where we see a lot of things changing, the way the attackers used to work before and how they're working now, and we see a lot of things that need to be taken into consideration when we define our cybersecurity infrastructure, or let me say roadmap, or the health of the cybersecurity infrastructure in our organizations. So this is again another point of concern, and which is happening today. It's happening currently, and we need to be aware of it. When I talk about future trends, right? So what exactly are we predicting? So we are looking at a couple of things. So first of all, yeah, cloud is going to be a big target. Okay, so cloud, because everything is good. Most of the systems are going, organizations are going the cloud way, right? So and it's easy for an attacker to target a cloud, because it's not really a closed environment anymore. It's and this is something which is creating a lot of headaches for the security teams. So that is something. The cloud is going to be targeted. It's going to be the primary target for these attackers as such. Second, we will also see unskilled threat actors on the rise. Again, we have seen that where ransomware as a service, where attackers would actually use that particular platform rather than developing their own code of ransomware or a malware. But again, we see a lot of places where there are some instances where some of the security guys, who are actually into this side of the table, who develop certain tools, and they went on the other side of the table, and they develop certain tools which are being now used by attackers to target organizations as such. So this is where we see unskilled actors will be on the rise. There was a time when you have to download a lot of tools. Now you can actually download a Kali Linux, which probably might have a lot of tools inbuilt for you to start, conducting hacking sort of, things on organizations as such. So that is something which we see as the second thing that's going to happen. Again, the third thing, the low-hanging fruit. So again, as I mentioned, RDP. I will give an example of RDP, right? Simple thing. We typically use it for troubleshooting purpose, for whatever, like say remote control purpose. But that is something which has been exploited way ahead by these threat actors. So the low-hanging fruit, it could be just a port open just for, let's say, troubleshooting purpose, but that could be exploited. It could be just a protocol which where there is no, let's say, two-factor authentication, let's say, or access, that could be exploited. So these things, the low-hanging fruits will definitely be targeted by attackers. Again, difficult economic times could lead to more people leveraging cybercrime. I mentioned about the one particular nation state, but yes, at the end of the day, we know we are living in a sort of a difficult world today. The economies are really struggling across the globe, and people are looking to make money out of it. Now we see there's a rise in cybercrime, especially against citizens in India, right? This is all public information, and where victims are falling day in day out to cyber criminals, and we were extorting money out of them. So this is as the economy of the world till the time comes back to normal, we will see this thing rising as such. And as digitalization happens, we will see more and more things happening like it. And this is where we need to be more vigilant about it. And finally, politically motivated incidents may rise, and I think this is something which is a fact. I think we know about what's happening we live in a nation where, again, in India, right, we know we're surrounded by other nations, and there is a lot of geopolitical things that are happening across the region, and one specific political, stint, or probably event, can actually trigger a lot of things across the nation. So end of the day, as an organizations, we are assets of the nation, and it doesn't matter for the attacker if it's a government, whatever it is. If you find something which is important for him, he's going to come after that particular organization. That is how we see the things will go ahead in the future as such. So what do we do about this, right? So the first and foremost thing is, again, we need to change our approach. The biggest thing that we see today, which I would say organizational lack, but I think the perspective of how do we change our approach to manage these modern day attacks. End of the day, we still, all of us probably have the best EDRs in place. We have the best firewalls in place. We have the security programs in place. But what is that we could change? So the only thing that we probably believe is to have a focus and have a threat-centric approach. And when I say that, when I say that, what I mean is that when you define a control, let's say, or when you define or deploying a specific technology, how do you evaluate it, or how do you basically define the strategy? What are the parameters? Is it based on features? Is it based on other metrics as such? The one thing that we believe that organizations look at is having an attacker's perspective, right? So if you were an attacker, right, how would you circumvent this particular control? How would you bypass this control, right? How would you expose that particular risk as such? So this is something which we need to put in our approach. Now, this could be at the tactical level where we are deploying security products. It could be at the operational level where we are measuring things are what's happening on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, and at a strategic level, right? When we are defining budgets, when we are defining, we are saying, okay, this is what I intend to do in the next 1 year. How can I have a more threat-informed or an approach towards towards my cybersecurity strategy or my investments, right? So that is something is the first thing that we want to do. The second thing is, is our building strategic alliances and sharing information. I think this is one of the biggest thing I believe that we need to do is how do we ensure that we have the right experts, we have the right intelligence, we have the right information with us proactively, so that we are protected against these sort of advanced attacks as such. And this is where the sharing this sort of information will have a big impact on the way we look at and manage things today. I'll give an example, right? So one of the nations, one of the countries where they built a platform where let's say it's a different example, but again, this is something where we can look at how exactly we could do it in our perspective, right? So they built a platform for different organizations to share information regarding money laundering and terrorism finance related information. So if one particular organization detects something that they will use that platform so all the other organizations know about it, right? So again, that's something which is more far-fetched, but again, I would say, and probably we are doing it to a particular extent as such, but how do you bring in the best expertise? How do you bring in the best intelligence? How do you bring in the best people, to share and help us make our environment more robust as such? So this is something which we probably want to do in our approach as such. So how can we help you? How can Unit42 help you, right? So whatever I spoke about, right, this is something which we can help you with our intelligence and threat-informed services. So we basically, provide services at 3 different categories, right? So one is the SS, where we test your security controls. Again, this is totally intelligence-led and threat-informed. So we're having a threat-specific approach towards testing your controls against with whatever intelligence that we have collected. I spoke about all the examples that I gave in, and then we want to look at from an attacker perspective. How does your cybersecurity program or your infrastructure look like, right? That's the SS category. We also help you with transformation. So, for example, when you have a specific, let's say you have a cybersecurity program, you have a SOC, and you want to move to the next generation SOC, or you want to mature your program to a level where you can proactively, detect and mitigate advanced nation-state cyber attacks. That is something which we help you with our transformation services. And finally, is a response. Again, when there is a breach, when there is something that we need to you need our help, we are available to help you respond to those breaches. Again, we have a threat informed and intelligence approach which will help you identify the attacker and then probably eliminate it from your network as such. So if you need any more information about our services, please go to this link, paloaltonetworks.com/unit42, and you will probably find all the details about it. Again, we have representatives in the country, so you can reach out to them if you're already a customer or on our website, but you will find details about these out there. From an intelligence standpoint, you'll also find a lot of intelligence reports that we released on our blog, Unit42 or paloaltonetworks.com, which we will provide you all a detailed deep dive technical and strategic information about attacks as such. Sorry. So with that, I would like to end the session, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Great session, Vishal, and perfect timing. We still have like 14-15 minutes to go. So guys, go ahead, raise your hand if you have any question. I will unmute you and then you'll be able to ask your question. I don't see any hand raised as yet. Yeah, Hemant Ji, I'm going to unmute you. You should be able to unmute yourself now. Go ahead, ask your question now.
Thank you for this wonderful session, Mr. Lanjekar. No doubt, it actually gave a lot of inputs. Just wanted to understand, or can you throw some light on cyber insurance and how do we probably? I see here little, not clash, but little confusion between the resilience and insurance part. So, do you have any services on that as well?
So we do not provide insurance services, but we partner with over 70 plus cyber insurance providers, and we are the preferred breach response vendors for those providers. So for example, if you buy an insurance from, let's say, an X provider, and let's say for some reason there's an incident where you need insurance, you reach out to the provider. In all possibilities, we will be the first company that we recommended by the provider. Having said that, cyber insurance, I believe, is a tricky thing, but I think it is also an important thing, because at the end of the day, you are still protecting some of your investment by putting in by investing in a cyber insurance as such. So I would recommend having a cyber insurance, but I'll be also very honest that the industry is shifting because we do hear about certain insurance providers having their own policies, having their own the way they evaluate their clients. But again, it is still a very important aspect. One thing is that if you have a proper cybersecurity program and an evaluated cybersecurity program where you can provide an assurance to a cyber insurance provider that this is the health of your cybersecurity, and this is what we help our clients is assessing their program, and when they go with that sort of a report, they probably the chances of you getting a higher, let's say, covered a large amount of return is probably would work in your way. So that is what I would say. Yeah.
Thank you very much for this support.
Thank you.
Great, sounds good. Let's go to Amit now. Amit, you are up for the question.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Vishal. This is Amit here from Schlumberger. Very nice presentation. Really enjoyed it. One question which I have, Typically, ransomware, it tops the list as always for a couple of years now. It keeps on coming, and most of the reports talk about the ransomware threats which have happened. So, do you have a report where that these are the ransomware types of, let's say, ransomware attacks, or if we can bucket them somehow, were stopped? And this was kind of a root cause analysis. This is how the attacks were stopped. I know it could be a very confidential information, but is there that kind of any research that is available? Because what we come to know is when the attack has happened, but I'm sure that there will be tons of attacks which were prevented from happening because of several things that the company might have taken care of. So is there any research that is available on this regard? That was my question. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Great question. So yes, so we release a ransomware report every year. So last year, so if you go to our website, you will find the ransomware report. You can go to unit42palonetworks.com, and what we have is, if you go to unit42palonetworks.com, you will find there is something called as atoms that we have, where we categorize every ransomware, be it detected or whatever we have identified. And we provide the countermeasures to block those, or to prevent or to detect those sort of ransomwares on our website. So it's all freely available for you to look at. We will also be releasing a ransomware report again, probably in a few weeks from now, which will even be updated. So we keep on releasing these reports every year. And the blog, which is unit40.palonetworks.com, is been continuously updated with new and new techniques, information about ransomware, information about threat actors, and you will find a lot of information out there which you can use to proactively, secure against those ransomwares. Despite that blog, I believe we also have a taxi feed. So if you are having sort of an intelligence a tip or something, you can use that taxi feed to get in all the latest IUCs as such as and when we release it. Yeah. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vishal.
Thank you.
Great. Let's move to next question now. Santosh, go ahead, unmute yourself and ask your question now, please.
Hey, thanks, Vishal, for the great session. I'm Santosh. My question is, have you seen any incidents of ransomware in cloud environments? Because there has not been any major incident in the news, and hence there is no learnings or knowledge sharing around that.
We haven't, I mean, at least for as I know, we haven't seen it probably in this region, probably, but yes, we have seen a lot of them in the other regions. Cloud incident, ransom incidents. We have seen those incidents as such. Yes, it is a little bit difficult to track those, and probably rather say, I would say, you need a specialized expertise when you're dealing with cloud ransomware. I mean, we do have specialized people for that. But yeah, it's not that common compared to you see it on a endpoint. But yes, there are a few incidents where ransomware have happened in the cloud as such. I don't recollect the organizations, but there are some. Sorry, I don't recollect, but I went through a couple of reports where there were organizations which actually mentioned that they were compromised. Their cloud environment was compromised as such. Yeah, I've seen that.
Cool. Let's go to next question. Mr. Anup, go ahead, ask your question. I'm rushing because we only have 6 minutes left. So, Mr. Anup, you are next. Go ahead, Mr. Anup. Okay, I see your mic is unmuted, but we can't hear you. So let's go to Vikram next. Vikram, you are up.
One very simple question.
Yeah.
Is the sophistication of these attacks increasing, or do they just continue to take advantage of the fact that we, as either the CISOs or as the CIO community, don't do a good enough job of using the protections that we have in place, whether it be applications, tools, technologies, etc., very well?
I would say both. I'll be very honest. I would say both, because End of the day, let's say if I'm an attacker and I want to target a specific organization because I have some motive, I'm going to look at whatever ways I can, get into it. Now, if you see the recent attack that happened in a telecom provider in Asia Pacific region, I won't name that. It was purely because of a simple flaw which could have been detected during a normal penetration test, but that was never performed. A large telecom provider. So at that point in time, the attacker did not require any sophistication tool. However, if you look at like the statistics that I mentioned, there are like lakhs of attacks that are happening across India. But the thing is, these have been protected because you have the right protection in place. Now, at that point in time, the attackers use more sophistication tool. So it would be I would say, it would be unfair to say that every organization they use sophistication tools. End of the day, they will gauge how the organization health is, how cybersecurity health is, and probably use it. If they find it through easy means, they'll go the easy way. If they get it difficult, they'll use more sophisticated tools.
Okay, but again, still the question remains that is the sophistication of attacks in general increasing?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, last question or maybe second last. Faisal, go ahead, unmute yourself and ask your question, please. Faisal, can you unmute yourself and ask your question? If not, let's go to Vishwajit. Vishwajit, you are up.
All for insight, I wanted to know, like, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, your voice was breaking in between, but go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Vishal, for insight. It was really great. I just wanted to know, like, how the cyber budget is increasing now.
Great question. Cyber budget is I think what is happening is now there are a couple of ways to look at it. The one is where countries are putting in regulations where people need to be, organization needs to have specific things in place and specific controls in place, which is then leading to increase in budget. Second thing is what we have seen is when incidents happen till the time, I'll be brutally honest about this, till the time people are not really serious about it. But when things happen, the budgets increase as such. But there are also where, there are also ways where there are organizations who proactively look at their cybersecurity health. They look at the business impact the cyber attack could have. And that is one of the things which they use to increase the cybersecurity budget. So in a way, yes, cybersecurity budgets are increasing. I'm not saying no, but it's situational based, right? I wouldn't say one specific situation for building increase the cybersecurity budget as such.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. 128. So maybe a very short question and short answer, Vishal. Abhishek bhai, go ahead, ask your question.
Vikas, quick question. Are there any services available which takes it to the ransomware guys where they track any discussions happening about a particular domain? For example, my company, my domain, any discussions happening, they're planning for any attacks. Are there any kind of services available like this?
Yeah, so there is something called as dark web monitoring services. So where the companies would actually look in for any sort of discussion that are happening, if there is any stolen data already, but it's been discussed or been shared on the forum. So there are dark web monitoring services that are available that you can explore. Yeah.
Awesome. 129.
Thanks.
Great. So guys, let me rush the closing as I always do. So thanks for attending the session, an amazing session you delivered, Vishal. Many people in the chat are asking how to download the CPE certificate. So I believe you are joining for very first time because we issue the CPE certificate in every session. So how you can download is you can go to EliteCISOs website, right? EliteCISOs website, and then go to events, upcoming events, click on CPE certificate. This will take you to a Google form. Put your email address where you want the certificate. techiewiki9@gmail.com. Put your full name. And the secret to download certificate is PCI, right? Put PCI, say submit, you will get the certificate over your email. Why PCI as a password? Because we are coming up with a highly discounted training for members. It is like 3,500 rupees only for 8 hours of premium training. So this is a new initiative we are starting where we are trying to bring highly discounted quality training for members. So you can go ahead and register for this training as well. Apart from it, next week on Thursday, our usual EliteKnowledge webinar is with Microsoft, and it is at 11 o'clock, our default time, our usual time, not at 12:30. So registrations are open for that. If you want, you can go ahead and register for this session as well. Last but not the least, the Wheel of Fortune. So we have 3 giveaways today, 3 units. These are the UPS for your Wi-Fi router. So I will spin it 3 times. If your name comes, go to the chat and say yes. This one, what you see is 419 people. These are the people who registered for this webinar, right? Next one we will do for the LinkedIn post. So if you support EliteCISOs on LinkedIn and you repost our session details, then we do a separate Wheel of Fortune for that. So this one is for all of the people who registered. I'm going to spin it. If your name comes, go to the chat and say yes. The first one goes to Mr. John Martis. So John, if you are there in the session, go to the chat and say yes, you are in the session. Now I'm going to remove all these 418 entries and I'm going to post only the names who supported EliteCISO's LinkedIn post. And you see it is very less, only 47 people. So I'm going to spin it now. And hopefully you are there. So this one goes to Miss Rama Devi. So Rama, if you are there in the session, go to the chat and say yes. And the third one I'm spinning now. This one goes to Mr. Anas Patil. So Anas, if you are there in the session, go to the chat again and say yes. 132 with this. Thank you very much everyone for taking out time and joining this session. Amazing turnout. We had about 300 people joining in and a great session delivered by Vishal. Recording is there. We'll record it. We'll put it on our YouTube channel and LinkedIn as well. It's been a great session. So you can replay it as well if you want. Couple of people were asking for slides. So Vishal and Mahima, if you can send over the slides, we will host it on our website as well. That's it for now. Thank you very much. See you guys next week on Thursday with Microsoft. Bye for now.
Thank you.